according to Matthew chapter 16, 21 to 28. From that time on, after Peter confessed that Jesus was the Messiah, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and undergo great suffering at the hand of the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, God, forbid it, Lord. This must never happen to you. But he turned and said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things. Then Jesus told his disciples, If any want to be my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit them if they gain the whole world but forfeit their life? Or what will they give in return for their life? For the Son of Man is to come with his angels in the glory of his Father, and then he will repay everyone for what has been done. Truly, I tell you, there are some standing here who will not taste the death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Here ends the gospel.
Praise to you, O Christ.
I had a hard time getting started on this sermon because I'd write something, but nothing stuck. And my mind kept going back to the news. So I'd start again in another avenue but finally I said, I guess this week is the time when something in the news should be in the sermon. I guess that's what God's telling me. And listen to the words. Whoever would be my disciple must take up their cross and follow me. Whoever would save their life will lose it, and whoever would lose their life for my sake and the gospel will gain it. Even Jesus' words to Peter, Get behind me, Satan, and you are a stumbling block, is a rebuke to any who would seek safety and security over integrity and truth. This week, the trial dates and timeline for the former president began to take shape. While the various investigations were happening, we saw examples of folks speaking up and holding tightly to the truth and to what was right. Over the last 2 years, we have seen people remaining steadfast in speaking the truth in the face of threats of violence, loss of jobs and income, and having their reputations destroyed. We are also seeing the cowardice and the lack of moral character in many who are keeping quiet. Now, be sure, not everyone who is keeping quiet is doing it for those reasons. But it is a high number, and that is very disturbing. Adam Kinzinger, one of the 2 Republicans on the House Committee investigation on January 6th, explained why he was on the committee. To paraphrase him, I have seen a lot of people sacrifice a lot more. At the end of the day, it is just a job. Then there is the mother-daughter poll workers in Georgia who refused to change their story to say that they saw voter fraud or did voter fraud. They had their lives threatened and had to go into hiding. They don't even feel safe going to the grocery store anymore because they don't know if anyone there is going to hurt them. But they refused to step down, even when they were vilified by the president and his chief lawyer. they refused to back down. Then there was the Secretary of State and the Governor of Georgia, who refused to find 11,000 votes. They certified the election as they're supposed to. They also refused to minimize the significance of the president's request. Then there is a young staffer, Cassidy Hutchinson, who testified to the attempts to subvert the election that she saw while she was in the White House. These people have paid a high price for their devotion to the truth and doing what is right. The poll workers, as I said it succinctly. They've lost their sense of security and their freedom to move around in the world. Do you know what it is like to be targeted by the President of the United States? They and others have had their lives and those of their family members threatened with death. It has been chilling to see this kind of intimidation in our country. All that is necessary for evil to succeed is for good men to do nothing. Edmund Burke, the founder of conservatism, wrote that almost 300 years ago. We are seeing the cost of doing nothing on the part of many. In some ways, we judge those who do nothing and those who enable the perpetrator more harshly than we do the perpetrator themselves. It can be easier to come to terms that there are people who want power, wealth, or status at the cost of others. We don't like it, but we get it. It is the spectator who keeps quiet that taps into our deepest fears. We all learn to keep our heads down. It is a necessary life skill. However, it can go from we don't want to tip at windmills to keeping our eyes averted because it's safer. Action that is out in the open is easier to see and act on. A while back, someone told me that growing up, she went from an inner city high school to a small town high school, and that she had wanted to go back to the inner city school. I would rather get punched in the gut than stabbed in the back, she said. It is like fighting phantoms when it comes to those who keep silent. Jesus is teaching his disciples and us what it means to be his disciple. In reading from Romans, we get a list of actions we are told to do as followers of Jesus. Hate what is evil, hold tight to what is good, do not lag in zeal, but be ardent in the Spirit. Contribute to the needs of the saints and extend hospitality to the strangers. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. We see these qualities in those who have spoken up, and it is inspiring. It is okay to look up to public figures if they have earned it. It is okay to see bravery in those we often disagree with. I never thought in a million years that I would admire someone named Cheney. Liz Cheney may have kept quiet in the face of actions taken earlier on by the leader of her party. However, she did stand up and hold fast to what is good when it was needed. And it cost her much. It cost her her congressional seat. However, at the end of the day, it was just a job. We will fail and not speak up. We have seen injustice and kept quiet. We have seen people stabbed in the back and done nothing. We have repaid evil or betrayal with evil. Unfortunately, we can see ourselves in those who have kept silent or enabled the former president to endanger our country. Hopefully, it is not our way of life. Hopefully, and I believe it's true, we can also see ourselves in those who spoke up and risked much to defend what is precious, our country. That is why what Jesus said to Peter is important for many reasons, but that's one of them. He is preparing his disciples to preach the gospel in the face of a hostile world. Many will not want to hear it. Many will be threatened by it. He knows his own public ministry is going to lead to his death. He knows that if the disciples proclaim him as the long-awaited Messiah, they too will suffer. They had better get used to it. They had better find a way to wrap their head around it. And they had better get used to leaning on God for the strength they need. Anything else, like Peter's delusion, will get in the way of their mission. Our lives may not be lived in the fast lane. The issues at stake may not be so grand as those who testified. However, they are important to us. The people we love count. The people who depend on us count. The church counts. Our witness counts. Our passion counts. Our neighbors and co-workers count. We count. Doing what is good, speaking the truth, and living out of a place of being loved by God and sharing it counts. All of this is usually more than enough for us. It's normally a lot for a lifetime. We fail in these situations often enough that we need God's love and forgiveness on a regular basis. Thank goodness that God gives it so freely. But we also live up to the command and do what is faithful and good, enough to make a difference in the world. It is good to be reminded of the cost of discipleship. It is good to encounter this gospel at a time of national crisis. The Greeks taught virtue through telling the stories of their great leaders. We are taught virtue through the life, death, and resurrection of our Savior. We are taught virtue. At the same time, we come face to face with our brokenness. We are summoned to virtue and full view of our humanness. We are taught virtue as we are called to orient all ourselves toward God. Today we are reminded that we are multi-layered. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. But that's enough. It's enough to respond and say yes to the unconditional love of God.